everybody. Welcome back to the Bucs UK podcast. As usual, first things first, please go and smash that like button below the video, hit subscribe and turn on that notification bell so you're notified every time we upload. I'm your host, Alex. I'm also joined by David for this one. And as you can see, we have someone else who you won't have seen on our podcast before. It is the first appearance for this gentleman on the bottom of your screen. We are thrilled to welcome from CBS Sports, award-winning writer for our UK viewers. He covers football. For our US viewers, that is, of course, soccer. And he just happens to be a Buccaneer fan. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Roger Gonzalez. Roger, hello. How are you today?
Hey, guys. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on. So, David, over to you.
Hi, Roger. It's really great to have you on the show today. Do you want to give us a bit of a background about yourself, what you currently cover, and how you got to where you are at the minute?
Yeah, so I started out in sports journalism here in the United States in high school, just trying to get into a field that involves sports because, you know, with sports and how much we love them, to be involved in any type of media production is so much fun. And so just began doing, naturally a lot of football or soccer. My dad, being from El Salvador, played professionally in Central America. It's just always been in my blood since I was little. Always had a soccer ball at my foot. And so just got into covering those types of sports, football, soccer, basketball, but more like in the high school, the secondary school range to start out. You have to start at the bottom. And then just was able to get into the professional side of it and have been able to cover Champions League finals, Copa America finals, and other big competitions, which has been quite a privilege for me.
That's excellent. And you do a lot of European coverage as well of soccer.
Yeah, so, for us at CBS Sports, we have the television rights for the UEFA Champions League. We have the Serie A rights coming up, and, the Premier League is just so huge here. I mean, there was a point where I had friends who, didn't know anything about the league. Now I have friends those same people who are watching it every single weekend. They're waking up at 7:30 Eastern time to watch the first match. And it's exciting to see how it's grown so much. But part of it also has been just the American presence in the sport. I remember a decade ago, for the U.S. to have a player at Hanover and Fulham was like, whoa, like crazy. Now, you've got, Pulisic at Chelsea, Weston McKennie at Juventus, and so many players who are making big impacts. So the game has grown like crazy. So I feel privileged to be able to help and cover it here.
And it's certainly the same from this side, where we get a lot more coverage of Major League Soccer now. And obviously Beckham's got Miami, and it's getting quite big over here as well. So how's MLS perceived in America?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a lot of people who are really backing it and are excited about it. I think there's certainly some who know it has a long way to go in terms of the quality of play. I mean, even when we had Zlatan Ibrahimovic here, and he was just talking about how different the league is and how the regular season doesn't matter, no promotion, relegation, which obviously takes out a lot of the excitement that we see in most of these European leagues. But it's growing, and yeah, I mean, especially with the English players that have come over. Obviously, Gerrard was here, Frank Lampard. Neville is here now coaching at Inter at Miami. So it's been interesting to see all those players come over from Europe and perform very well.
You mentioned some players in particular, Roger. You said about how you've got players that have come from Europe over to US, and of course you've got players from the US who are now making an impact in Europe. You mentioned Christian Pulisic, of course. You've got Anthony Robinson at Fulham and Zach Steffen at Manchester City. What's the reaction or how are they supported in the States? So all these players, these now becoming well-known, world-known players from the US in the European leagues?
Right. Well, I think a lot of the people here like to see them, at the biggest of clubs. Obviously, I think it's kind of been a crazy time to see some of the Americans that have gone to clubs. Gio Reyna at Borussia Dortmund is another one. But I think overall, it certainly helped people become fans of certain clubs. They can kind of associate themselves with a club. Now, I have a lot of friends who support Fulham because of when Clint Dempsey was there. It was interesting. I'm talking with Zach Steffen before the Champions League final and spoke to his college coach at the University of Maryland, this is a guy who played for Sir Alex Ferguson at Aberdeen. He knows the sport. He's been around it so well. Was a huge Manchester United fan growing up. Now he supports City because one of his best players ever, having Steffen now at City, has kind of made him change an allegiance, which I'm sure if he was an Englishman doing that wouldn't have gone over too well.
So, I mean, we've both got a sort of common interest in that we both follow sports with this great big pond in the middle. So from Bucks' perspective and us following it, particularly the primetime games, we have a lot of late nights and early mornings. So, I mean, how do you find it covering European sport?
I think it's interesting. That's a good question because I can only imagine. We've got at CBS we have a couple coworkers who are from England. One of them is James Bench, who used to write for Football London, and he has covered Arsenal. He loves the New York Knicks, and I can't imagine him staying up so late for those games. For me, on the other side, the first Premier League game kicks off at like 7:30, so that's awesome for me to be able to wake up and have that right away. Now, if I were in Los Angeles, where it would be 4:30 in the morning, it'd be a whole lot trickier. So I really think this Eastern time zone is quite perfect for when it comes to the scheduling of sports. The only bad thing is some of these West Coast NBA games that are like 10:30 p.m. Can be kind of hard to stay up for, but we're in a good spot.
That's excellent. Yeah, we certainly experienced a lot of late nights and early mornings, and we've got another, obviously, 5 primetime games coming up again this season with the Buccaneers. So, I mean, you're a Bucks follower over there. You're probably the first person really that we've been speaking to recently since the Super Bowl win that's not really engaged with Tampa and is a Tampa person as such. So what's the general perception of the Bucks' success across America as opposed to sort of Tampa-centric?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I think, obviously there's been some down years as of late, before this past season. So I think, expectations were certainly high when you sign somebody like Tom Brady and expecting him to change everything. I think, while for most people they didn't think the Bucs would win a Super Bowl with Brady, they thought, his days as a superstar were kind of long gone. I think a lot of us had confidence that something special could happen, though it happened a whole lot sooner than any of us probably would have thought when you think about going through a pandemic and just everything, bringing a group together like that. And I think for a lot of people here, they were certainly shocked that he chose Tampa. It felt like there were options maybe like the Chargers or some of the other teams that maybe made a bit more sense from just different perspectives. I mean, him being from California, right, and maybe wanting to get closer to his old home and his parents. And I think, a lot of people were certainly skeptical, especially as the season started with that loss to the Saints, wondering, really does this team have, what it takes to contend. So as we saw, as the team began to play better towards the second half of the season, more people here who aren't Bucs fans also started to believe in what this team was doing. And, I'm a firm believer that if you get hot at the right moment, anything could happen. So I think they've certainly earned a lot of fans. A lot of people have taken notice. There's people who are just Brady fans to begin with who have been excited for what the Buccaneers have done. And it's incredible to think, just over a year where things are now after what was a crazy 2020.
So Brady, to us, I suppose we weren't really highly focused on him when he was at New England. But he seems just a totally different character to what we perceived. I don't think I've ever seen the guy smile so much and have so much fun. Is there a difference to him now he's down in Tampa?
I mean, I think so, right? I think when you're in an organization like the Patriots, where things are just so kind of kept quiet, kind of, a tight group and not very emotional on the outside. And now you see him, throwing trophies from boat to boat and drinking a little bit too much. And he just seems like he's in a good spot, right? Somewhere where he can have a ton of fun and kind of feels like be himself in a way. He's never been one to reveal too much when speaking with the media, but he just seems like he's in a happy place and found a group of guys that were committed to winning. And so it was quite refreshing. I vividly remember the moment here when the reports started to come out that he was set to sign with the Bucs. I remember being at my house and just wondering, like, is it, if it was real, right? If he would really choose to come to Tampa. But then when you looked at it, the weapons that we have on offense certainly were very attractive for him to come. And I just can't believe everything that's kind of happened. And it's wild to think, I think I look at it as like Michael Jordan, where I would love for, my NBA team to have had that experience. Now to have my favorite NFL team to have, had the experience of Tom Brady, the greatest of all time, that's something that I'll never forget. It's been awesome, and I'm excited to see what's to come.
You mentioned Tom Brady, Roger. You've mentioned New England Patriots. I'm now going to ask you a question that I was asked on another show, a Bucs Report show, who, again, just want to thank you guys, Bucs Report, quickly for your support of our podcast. And they asked me, looking ahead to week 4, who wants it more, Tom Brady or Bill Belichick? As a
That's
fan, what
interesting.
do you think?
Well, it's interesting. So I'm originally from New England. I was born in New England, and when I was 5, we moved down to Virginia, which is near Washington, D.C. I was never a Patriots fan, but always admired what Tom Brady did. And I think, yeah, when you look at this game, I mean, it's a primetime game, obviously, on a Sunday night here. It's going to be incredible. I think, really, I obviously saw from Tom Brady last season and how he holds everybody accountable and just his determination and drive. It's hard for me to believe that there's anyone who would want it more. And I think when you hear the players talk, hearing interviews, whether it's with Levante David, Chris Godwin, they just talk about the guy's drive and just how he holds people to a certain standard. That all he wants to do is win. When he signed the contract extension in the offseason, he put something was like, let's go for 8 or something. He's already thinking about that. So I certainly think there's nobody that wants him more than him.
I mean, it's been so great to see some of the Bucs players like Levante David that have been around through some tough years and to finally get that success. And to see that we've put all our starters back again for next season and still actually adding to that. What's everyone's expectation for next year? It's got to be another Super Bowl, isn't it?
Yeah, I have coworkers who cover NFL. Us at CBS, we had the Super Bowl on TV this year. So they even sent us this really cool gear, hats and jackets for the Super Bowl. Which, if the Chiefs won, I wasn't going to wear it. I was just going to donate it. I couldn't have lived with that. So I'm glad it turned out as it did. And yeah, I think the perception here is, for the Buccaneers to win again. And certainly it's easier said than done. We've seen what the Chiefs has done and reloaded on their offensive line. And there's certainly other teams that can certainly contend. The Packers again, if Aaron Rodgers stays. But I think, people always mention, the Buccaneers potentially repeating, but also, looking back at, when the Patriots did it, and just obviously how difficult it is to win one, let alone, 2 in a row, consecutive ones. So I'm always a bit skeptical on, having a year of footage of a team and seeing what adjustments teams can make defensively to try to stop this offense. But then on the other side, this team's together again, having a somewhat normal off season, and after hitting their stride towards the end of the season, we saw after the NFC Championship game where Devin White was walking off the field with Tom Brady and said, we haven't even played our best. And while the Super Bowl was a great performance, obviously, I think they have these expectations, these feelings that they can be even better. So that's exciting time for all of us fans.
It just feels some years a team have reached the Super Bowl, get the win, and they all disappear. They've done what they all set out to do. They've taken the money. But this whole unit seems dedicated on coming back for a second go.
I mean, it's really baffling that everyone's been able to, to stay. I think when Coach Arians, who I went to the same university as Coach Arians, he was there a whole lot earlier than me. But I've always had a great appreciation for him as a Virginia Tech alum, just like me. And I think for Coach Arians, at the parade to be saying, he's going to bring everyone's coming back. It's kind of hard to believe that, right? Knowing the money that's in the league, and I think the salary cap issue that it being lower this season certainly played a bit of an impact. But boy, is that exciting! And to be able to, I've never seen us drafting at 32, right? Because we won the first Super Bowl. It was the John Gruden trade where we lost those first-round picks. So it was really comfortable. It was really nice having that experience this season and knowing we were simply adding, for some depth. And so expectations are super high. I'm anxious for the season to begin. Obviously, still quite a ways out, but it feels weird entering another season where you believe something special could happen, because it's been a long time since that was the feeling.
Can I have your opinion, Roger, on the draft, actually? Because as you said, we picked at number 32. We got, Joe Tyrone looks like one heck of a player to get at 32, and then we take Kyle Trask in the second round. You said about the depth as well. I think from our perspective, certainly here in the UK, it looks like Jason Licht and Bruce Arians are certainly building for that future again, or the rebuild once Tom Brady does decide to call it a day.
Yeah, I was wondering if we would get a quarterback. I think there's even some buzz about us taking a quarterback in the first round. So I think getting a pass rusher, some depth in the first round, obviously made a lot of sense, especially with JPP getting up there and not much left on his contract. The quarterback situation is interesting. CBS, our sports offices are based in Florida. We've got a lot of University of Florida alums who have always talked really highly about Kyle Trask and what he could do. And it seems like he's someone who people compare to Brady in the sense of, just being someone who sits in the pocket, not like the greatest athlete in the world, but can be accurate and plays with quite a calmness about him. So I think, that's a pick that excites me. I don't think we have to worry about anything like the Packers situation, with their quarterback and drafting someone high. And it just seems like it's, certainly thinking towards the future. And I think we have the luxury of being able to do that considering where we are with our roster.
So we go in week 1. What 3 quarterbacks do we still have on the roster?
Yeah, I think it would have to be, Brady, Trask, and Gabbert, right, at this point for the Bucs.
Yeah, so there's going to be an odd man out somewhere along the line.
Yeah, Griff would probably be babysitting, keep him around the practice squad or something. It just seems like, certainly, having Tom Brady, there's no doubt that he would be the starter. And it seems like Jason Licht really is fond of Blaine Gabbert as well. He was obviously a high draft pick. And I think, with Trask, it's just a situation of, him being there to learn as much as he can from Tom and seeing what things he can kind of pick up and how he can model his game after him.
Excellent. And what do you think about our divisional rivals? They're all in a bit of a rebuild at the minute. Is there anything there that scares you about those teams?
They used to. Now they don't scare me much at all, and I can't tell you how much I dislike these other NFC South teams for the longest time. I was in college when the Saints won the Super Bowl, and I wasn't too happy, and was just waiting for us to win the next one so we could again be, the kings of the NFC South. But I think, Carolina, new quarterback situation. They have some decent pieces. They've gone heavy drafting defense. Sam Darnold doesn't scare me. I don't think there'll be much of a problem. I think the Falcons are, 2017, 2018. I'm not concerned with them at all either. And the Saints, obviously not having Drew Brees, it's nice to not have to face him, twice a year or 3 times as we saw last season. And it's interesting because I remember, us having lost to them in the regular season twice last season. I don't know if you guys remember when we won our first Super Bowl, we lost to them twice that season too.
Yep.
So it's almost like obviously you don't want to lose to them, but it's kind of coincidental how that all worked out. And I think, there's obviously no doubt that we'll, I think in my mind, win the division and potentially run away with it. But in regards to another team kind of stepping up in the division, it's really hard, I think, for me to pick who. We've seen enough Jameis where it's hard to trust them. And the other teams don't have the greatest situations either. So I think it makes for a comfortable division title for us this season, hopefully.
Let's hope so, yeah. So we need to talk to you about soccer. And so we hear you're a Mighty Hammers West Ham fan here in the UK. So do you want to tell us about your love for soccer then and how you got into that?
Yeah, so my dad played for a club called Alianza in El Salvador, and he came here in the 80s, and he's always been connected with people around the sport, some players who have played in MLS and in Europe. And I was born with the ball at my foot. My wife is from Argentina. They obviously have the sport in their blood like crazy. So it's just a big football, soccer family. And for me, when it comes to supporters, I've long been a supporter of Boca Juniors in Argentina. They've always been my favorite team. But when it came to England specifically, I was looking for a team to support. Obviously, we get almost every Premier League game. You can get every Premier League game on TV here now. And so in trying to decide kind of what team I wanted to support, I always thought it was important just to, find a connection. You have people here saying, oh, I'm going to be a United fan, or I'm going to be a City fan because they win so much. And that, to me, doesn't make much sense. I think you have to have some type of connection. And so for me, Carlos Tevez being my favorite player, obviously his first club in England was West Ham, and we saw him help the team escape relegation. And just some of the players over the years that I've certainly enjoyed with the club. And I think that was just the natural connection for me. Was Tevez having come, I wasn't going to jump ship with him to United or to the City after that. And I just always enjoyed kind of, that the blue collar, just kind of hardworking, team that West Ham represents. And, certainly it's been up and down. This has obviously been a pretty good season, but have to finish strong, obviously these last couple of games. But I think there's been quite the transformation for a team that really, tends to not even play with a true number 9. Having Michael Antonio up there and a lot of young talent. I just think this is a club that is certainly headed in the right direction. We've seen David Moyes kind of, work his, have his touch on this team now after a bit, and I think they're certainly trending in the right direction.
Yeah, it's certainly been a great season for them after particularly just avoiding relegation last year and gone above all expectation. I mean, they made some great signings this year. They beat Leeds twice, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
For Alex.
Thank you, David. Yeah, thanks for mentioning that one. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, Europe would be sort of the icing on the cake. It's still going to be a little bit tough just to get there and make sure that we secure that. I suppose the big worry is that if they do get into Europe, that could impact them next season. I think certainly for those Premier League teams that are sort of in the not top 6, if you get into Europe in a number of games, to have the depth of squad can actually be quite difficult, and it can actually take a toll on your season overall. So we'll see how it goes, and let's hope we get in and have some success, and it encourages other players to get there.
So I just recalled last time making Europe leave with Village and what happened with the team there, and not making it out of the playoff round, and just how kind of disastrous things went from there. It's certainly a lot to ask for a team to to have to face European competitions as well, when maybe perhaps the squad depth isn't comparable to the teams that are used to being in those positions. So we'll see. I'm excited, and we'll see if they can finish strong.
Excellent. That's great. It's really great speech here today. I don't know if there's anything else you want to pick up.
For me, growing up near New York City, I never had a team that I really liked. And this when I was like 6, 7, 8 years old. But Keyshawn Johnson went to the Jets, and I was like, this guy, I love watching this guy play. He's loud, he's obnoxious to a degree, but was certainly entertaining. And so he became my favorite player. And I was little. He got traded to Tampa, and I was like, okay, here we go. Buccaneers, this could be my team. And they had Rondé Barber, who played at the University of Virginia, which is the rival school of Bruce Arians and our university. Though I don't know if you've seen that Bruce Arians used to babysit Rondé and Tiki Barber, which is crazy. And he played at the university, which is 20 minutes from my home. Grew up close to the university that Coach Arians and I went to, and so that's how I became a Bucs fan. And it's interesting. We lived in Central Virginia, which is near Charlottesville, where the University of Virginia is, where Rondé played. And we moved to a new neighborhood recently. And come to find our 2 neighbors next door, the next 2 houses down, both of the wives from those houses were born in Tampa, and they like the Buccaneers. We have a lady who walks around the neighborhood who I met. Her niece is engaged to Cameron Brate, or dates Cameron Brate, which is the most random thing in the world to see. That connection so close. And so it was kind of cool to see fellow Bucs fans in this new neighborhood when I wasn't expecting any.
How often do you get down to Tampa yourself, Roger, to see a Bucs game? Have you been able to? Obviously, last season I'm assuming it was tricky, but do you get the chance to get to the Ray J much?
No, not often at all. So I think for me, the target has been trying to see the Bucs on the road. So the plan, I think, for Father's Day, my wife is trying to get tickets for when we play Washington in November. But also we are probably 4 hours or so from Carolina, from Charlotte, where the Panthers play. So that's my closest opportunity every year. The issue is, covering soccer or football on the weekends, it's hard to get away, right, with all the matches that are on the weekends. Yeah. So usually I just try to knock out all my Premier League work and then sit back and watch the Bucs. So hopefully I can get to a game or 2 this season.
Let's hope we all can, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're desperately keen to get back over to the States for some games. How do you think the London games have been perceived over there as well? Obviously, we had the Buccaneers there a couple of years ago again. Right.
I think maybe the matchups this coming season aren't too great, though there'll be some really young quarterbacks that will be fun to see. I think people like it here because, for us to wake up and have a game at 9:30 our time is awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just this trend of these hardcore football fans here where we watch the games at 1, the games at 4, and then the games at night on Sunday. And it's always a long, fun day of watching, especially now that sports gambling is legal in a lot of states here. But when you add in those games that are sometimes early, the ones in London, those are always really fun to have. A game in the morning. Though obviously we haven't seen the greatest of matchups, but I certainly think that hopefully will change in time. There's talk here, the buzz about can they send the Jaguars to London? And with how things have gone for Fulham, I'm thinking they probably don't really want to go in that direction. But it's been cool. It's been nice to see the games there, and especially games in Mexico City as well. I think it just shows how much the sport is certainly growing, and hopefully it continues to grow.
Do you think there'll ever be a franchise over here?
I mean, that'd be cool, right? I think for those who are into video games, who play the Madden NFL video game, you can relocate a team to London if you want to in the game. So I wonder if that's something that they're really strongly considering. We've seen NBA bring games to London as well. They did one in Paris as well, and so in time, I wonder if that is something that they would consider. You think about some of these flights. I had to do an MLS Cup in Seattle a couple of seasons ago, and that was like a 5-hour flight from DC to Seattle. So that's a long flight. And East Coast to London isn't a whole lot more. So who knows? Would you guys like that?
Yeah, certainly. Although it'd be desperately sad if it was the Bucs.
Yeah.
Going to the States. But they've made such an effort at the Tottenham Hotspur ground to make it compatible for NFL games. From already having built the size of the changing rooms to already have the facility to bring the pitch in, it must have been on their mind that was going to be a solution going forward. Now, obviously, COVID stepped in and interrupted everything. And this year we've only got 2 UK games because they've moved to Germany as well. But it must have been in their minds, I'm sure, at some time to actually go to that extent of building a stadium that would readily accept it.
Yeah, I think here they say, Jaguars and I think the Bills people mention a bit, but obviously the Bills are such a storied franchise. It'd be a shame to see them move. They've talked about the Bills to Toronto, right? Time and time again. So the Jaguars can move. That's fine. I think Tampa certainly be nice to have them stay. And I think we have the structure in place now where it doesn't need to be too big of a concern. I think the merchandise is going to continue to fly off the shelves, especially with the home games this coming season, and hopefully we have Brady for 2 more seasons. And I certainly like where we're at. I couldn't believe just exactly how last season worked out and how everything kind of fell into place, especially in the playoffs. And that Super Bowl is something special that I won't forget. I'm sure you guys won't either.
It's absolutely amazing. What a fantastic season. Just actually gutted we couldn't be there.
Absolutely. And can you believe that someone on this episode, Roger, said that they weren't happy that Brady was signed at the start of the season? Might have been me. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Might have been me on that one, but
I think I think there's certainly a reason to be a little skeptical, right? I mean, having a 43-year-old quarterback and wondering just how much he had left in the tank. But, when he can manage a game like he does, just the brilliance of, he has a rusher coming to him just to throw it away and get to the next play and then save his body. I mean, I think he's certainly figured out how to play this game at the highest level, and it seems like there's no stopping him. So hopefully it continues to be with us for a while.
Absolutely. What you just said there, we actually spoke to Andy Marpet recently on the show as well, and he was saying exactly what you said about how quick Tom Brady gets rid of the ball. It makes a world of difference. So maybe it was just the New England receivers that made me think Tom Brady wasn't able to do it. So I can happily hold my hands up and say I'm pleased I was wrong.
They didn't have any receivers.
No. Roger, thank you ever so much for joining us. It's been a real pleasure to have you on. Thank you for your time.
I love you guys. Thank you. Go Bucs.
Thank you.
That was great. Thanks very much. That's superb.
So once again, thank you.
Fun.
Once again, everybody, thank you for tuning in. David, thank you for joining me on the show today. It's been a pleasure. We will be back again very soon for another episode. In the meantime, take care and go Bucs.
Go Bucs.